Perhaps nothing is more iconic to America than the giant green woman standing in the New York harbor. Though 10 years too late for America's centennial, the people didn't mind the delay. Any present that arrives in 214 boxes must be a fantastic gift. Even before its final assembly, in 1886, it earned the nickname, the New Colossus, thanks to poet Emma Lazarus. The statue quickly became a symbol of freedom and hope, her torch acting as a lighthouse for the tired and poor, beckoning people to the shores of the United States with the promise of shelter and new beginning. This great gift came from France with the idea of marking and celebrating the centenary of American independence, the preservation of American democracy in the Civil War, and the decision to abolish slavery. The French financed the 46-meter-high sculpture, while the Americans had to build a pedestal on which the Statue of Liberty would stand, involving more than 100,000 donors. At the opening of the statue to the public, between several hundred thousand and a million people participated in the ceremonial parade on land and at the sea. So I'll quote Whitesnake, "Is this love, or am I dreaming?" The fact that only 12 years later France and United States will find themselves in an undeclared war at sea shows how volatile, loveless, and full of interest the world of politics is. The navies of two countries were fighting and attacking each other's ships in the West Indies for 2 years. The conflict ended with the agreement of 1800, which ensured America's right to navigate the seas as neutral and without monetary payments to France. At the negotiations, the French-American alliance from 1778 was officially abolished, and the indemnity debt demanded by France of $20 million was subsequently paid by United States. If we look throughout history, few nations have done as much for the US as France. And if we look at it today, it is an unequal partnership. According to the World Bank, America's GDP for 2024 will be $25,462 billion, France's $2,782 billion. There are 340 million Americans, 65 million French. The military budget of the USA is 916 billion. The military budget of France is 61 billion. But it wasn't always like that. This is what it says on the website of the US Department of State.
The United States and France established diplomatic relations in 1778 following the United States Declaration of Independence from Great Britain, and France provided key assistance to the United States as an ally during its War of Independence.
And indeed, the word key or crucial perhaps best describes the aid France gave to America in those years. French aid began even before the Declaration of Independence in July 1776 through the sending of personnel and war material. After the Declaration of Independence, the Americans in Paris recruited officers for their army, the most famous of whom is the Marquis de Lafayette, who voluntarily joined the Continental Army and served in it as a major general. Despite their distrust of France, American representatives also sought a formal alliance. After preparing their fleet and witnessing the US victory at the Battle of Saratoga in October 1777, the French concluded treaties of commerce and alliance on February 6, 1778, pledging to fight Britain until the independence of the United States was secured. Thus, throughout its War of Independence, the nascent United States relied on Catholic France for military, financial, and diplomatic aid, leading to a significant reduction in the harshness of anti-Catholic rhetoric and in an increase in religious tolerance. Another benefit for the United States. During the peace negotiations at the end of the war, which took place in Paris in 1882, the French played a significant role. At them, the American representatives correctly understood that France did not want a strong United States, and that they would get better peace terms if they negotiated directly with the British. According to the French proposal, the United States would gain independence, but would be limited to the area east of the Appalachian Mountains, while Britain would take control of the area north of the Ohio River. In the southern region, an independent Indian state under Spanish control would be established as a barrier state to prevent Americans from accessing the Mississippi River or New Orleans, which were under Spanish control. So nothing love, only interest. The former colonizer proved to be more generous than the current ally, opening the way in the future for highly profitable two-way trade between Britain and the rapidly developing United States. In 1800, the Spanish Empire loses a lot of money due to its ownership of the territory of Louisiana and wants to hand it over to Napoleon, who sees the territory as well as Haiti as his base for a new world empire. President Jefferson could tolerate weak Spain in the west, but not the powerful First French Empire. He was considered going to war to prevent French control of the Mississippi River. Jefferson sent his close friend James Monroe to France to purchase as much land as possible around New Orleans. Surprisingly, Napoleon agreed to sell the entire territory. Again, nothing love, only interests. In order to keep Louisiana out of British hands in the coming war, Napoleon decided to sell it to the United States in 1803 for $15 million. British bankers financed the deal by buying American government bonds and shipped the gold to Paris. The size of the United States was doubled without entering the war, and Napoleon was pleased as he felt he had created a long-term rival for Britain in the West. With the Louisiana Purchase, the US inherited French claims to Texas and border disputes with the neighboring Spanish colonial empire, which later paved the way for the purchase of Florida. The United States was getting bigger and bigger. In 1840s, Britain and France considered sponsoring the continued independence of the Republic of Texas and blocking US moves to obtain California. Balance of power considerations made Britain want to keep the Western territories out of US hands to limit its power. Because of these same considerations, France opposed such an intervention to limit British power, for the same reason it had previously supported the American Revolution and sold Louisiana to the US. So Paris accepted the territorial growth of the continental United States without much opposition. During the American Civil War, 1861-65, France was neutral, like every other nation. However, Napoleon III favored Confederation, hoping it would weaken the United States and thereby protect his large investment in controlling the Second Mexican Empire. France was too weak to act alone and sought the support of the British, who also favored the Confederacy, but were also unwilling to risk war with the US. By 1865, diplomatic pressure from the United States, along with the buildup of American troops on the Mexican border, convinced Napoleon III to withdraw French troops and support. The Union victory, the French withdrawal from Mexico, and the Russian sale of Alaska made the United States the dominant power in the Western Hemisphere. The balance of power in the relationship changed as the United States, with its very rapid growth in wealth, industry and population, overshadowed the old powers, including France. The opportunity for the monster they created to help them came to the French in the World War I, but even more so in the World War II. Defeated and occupied France was liberated by American and British troops who entered Paris victoriously in August 1944. Since 1949, France and US have been formally allies through membership in the NATO. France somewhat reluctantly joined the American leadership in the Cold War to contain the Soviet Union. A major crisis occurred in 1956 when France, Britain and Israel attacked Egypt, which nationalized the Suez Canal. US President Eisenhower forced them to withdraw. The exposure of their diminished international status had a profound effect on Great Britain and France. Britain aligned its Middle East policy with that of the United States, while France distanced itself from what it saw as an unreliable alliance and sought its own path. Although the United States openly opposed France's effort to regain control of its colonies in Africa and Southeast Asia, it supported the French government in its fight against the communist insurgents in French Indochina, for understandable reasons. A new problem in the relations was the refusal of United States to help France develop nuclear weapons. France did not help America in the Vietnam War. In 1966, Charles de Gaulle withdraws France from the Joint Command of the NATO, not from membership in NATO, but from the Joint Command, and this leads to the fact that the headquarters of Alliance is moving from Paris to Brussels. De Gaulle's foreign policy was focused on trying to limit the power and influence of both superpowers, which would increase France's international prestige in relative terms. De Gaulle hoped to move France from a follower of the United States to a leading first world power with a large following among certain non-allied third world countries. Later, France, more strongly than any other nation, sees the European Union as a method to counterbalance American power through the development of a single euro currency and the development of a European defense initiative. The countries did not agree on the issues of unification of Germany, as well as regarding the purchase of gas from Russia. During the Gulf War in 1991, France supported the American attack on Iraq and even placed all French forces under American command during the war, which was an unprecedented decision in the history of France. However, in 2003, France refused to participate in the invasion of Iraq, although it strongly condemned the terrorist attack of September 11, 2001. During that period, only 1 in 6 Americans perceives France as an ally of the US, and in some restaurants a short-term change occurs. French fries become freedom fries. Later relations improved, especially under French President Sarkozy, who was nicknamed Sarkozy the American, which he liked. Since 2008, France is again under the joint command of NATO, and the two countries mostly cooperate in all the most important issues. So is there love, or is it all just interest? The famous writer Mark Twain once wrote with humor, France has neither winter nor summer nor morals. France has usually been governed by prostitutes. Apart from these drawbacks, it is a fine country. On the other hand, for the French, Americans are conformists, materialists, racist, violent and vulgar, while they are individualists, idealists, tolerant and civilized. Likewise, the French hate having to learn English because it has become a necessary skill in a global environment that includes American technology, education and business. But there is also love. Although Americans often disparage and condemn the French, they are very fond of their first ally. Maybe they love them more than anybody else. And perhaps precisely because so few migrants have came to America from there, France remains exotic as it floats freely in the American imagination. There is an insatiable cultural and romantic longing for Paris, and everything French is so chic and sophisticated, be it perfumes, wines or barrettes. As for the French, they are a bit specific. If they talk to an American, they will claim that France is the best. But if they talk to another Frenchman, they will say that France is no good. It is true, however, that the French are swallowing American culture. They love American music, literature and movies. Like the rest of the world, they have embraced American consumerism, fashion and fast food. The French know history and respect America's role in the world wars. And the surest way to find a soft spot in their hearts is if you are an American in Paris trying to learn French. They are really pleased to hear that. I hope you find this video interesting and of some value for you. Please excuse my Tarzan English and please like, share and subscribe.